When you hear what I'm about to say, bear in mind that this is a debate whose purpose is to air the pros and cons of a proposition, and the views being expressed are not necessarily my own. Europe has among the highest smoking prevalence of any region in the world, and there's little sign of this shifting. And in most countries, what little momentum there was for tackling the deaths from tobacco seems to have waned. In the view of many people, this reflects the enormous power that the tobacco industry and those who benefit from it still have over public policy. Finally, it looks as though the UK is going to do what it should have done decades ago and ban the sale of tobacco products, incrementally starting with the youngest age groups. This is the smoke-free generation policy that's currently going through the UK Parliament, which, if enacted, would mean that no one in the UK would legally be able to sell or give tobacco products to anyone born on or after 1st of January 2009. There is widespread support for this policy, but as some of you will know, the leaders of right-wing parties oppose it and may well repeal the bill if they win the next general election. Similar to what happened when New Zealand tried to introduce this policy a few years ago. The US has taken a different approach. It's considering legislation to limit the amount of nicotine in tobacco to 0.7 milligrams per gram of smoked tobacco, which would amount to something like a 96% reduction. A level that some studies suggest would make cigarettes non-addictive. In a country such as the US, which professes to value freedom, this approach has the attraction of supposedly enabling smokers to make a free choice about whether or not they want to smoke, rather than being forced by nicotine addiction to smoke against their will. The assumption, probably accurate, is that almost no one would carry on smoking these cigarettes, particularly if non-tobacco nicotine products such as e-cigarettes or nicotine pouches were available. Both the smoke-free generation and nicotine reduction policies could be made to work. Certainly, both face practical challenges in terms of controlling black markets and enforcement, but these can be addressed. The biggest challenge is political acceptance. With the failure of so-called centrist policies to meet the needs of huge swathes of society, we're seeing an upsurge in right-wing sentiment, and the so-called libertarian right claim to support freedom of choice. Of course, these seem to be the same right-wing politicians who want to restrict freedom of choice when it comes to women's fertility and the right to demonstrate against genocide. So, few people believe that freedom of choice of the public is the issue here. The issue is the freedom of corporations to make money regardless of the consequences. In that political context, and a situation in which around 7 million people are being killed each year by tobacco products and 1 million in Europe, we're looking for radical policies that will end this carnage and might receive such a high level of public support that politicians have little option but to implement them. In that context, a case can be made for the nicotine reduction approach in some countries as promoting freedom of choice, particularly if non-tobacco nicotine products are available as a substitute. The logic of the argument, to go back to the wording of the motion, depends on the wider political climate. In a country such as the UK, if we can fight off the insurgency from the far right and push through and maintain the smoke-free generation policy, together with other measures to support smoking cessation in those who currently smoke, we could end the tobacco epidemic. However, in countries whose politicians are not willing to take this step, the combination of reducing nicotine in tobacco and making nicotine available in other forms could be the logical choice.